Hello and welcome everyone. A very warm good afternoon. I hope all of you are doing good. My name is Harshmeet Singh and we are here from Narayana IAS Academy to welcome you all in today's session of the daily newspaper analysis. As you know, this is a place where we discuss the most important news stories from the day's newspaper, both from the prelims and the mains perspective. On top of that, we also make sure that we give you enough practice questions so that you can test yourself whether you are able to understand that topic or not. If you have still not formed this habit, please make sure every single day at 4 p.m. when we are here, you should also be here to analyze the day's newspaper and to test your knowledge as well. Before we begin with today's topics, just a quick reminder to all of you. These are the courses that we offer for all those who are planning to appear for the UPSC examination either in 2026 or beyond that. There is a 1-year course and there are 2-year courses also on offer, which offer you complete preparation starting from the prelims examination, including a rigorous preparation for the mains exam, including answer writing and then the interview stage. There will be dedicated classes for current affairs, there will be dedicated lesson planning for you so that you can get the best out of it. Also, if you are one of those who is planning to write the prelims exam this year, that is May 25th, you would all know that we are right now running a prelims crash course right here on our YouTube channel. We started last week. Every single day, we have classes of economics and Indian polity. Do make sure you check out those as well. In that prelims crash course that is specifically designed to cover current affairs of the last 20 to 15 months, those classes have a lot of practice questions, have a lot of revision tricks and tips, extremely effective for those who are planning to write the prelims this year. So do check that out as well. On that note, let's see what are the topics that we are here with you for today. Now, these are the 3 topics that we will be discussing. First topic will be specifically from the mains examination point of view. How will genetic mapping of Indians help? Now, countries around the world, including India, is interested in genetic mapping of its people. As you know, with every single passing year, there are new kinds of diseases that are emerging, there are new kinds of microbes that are emerging. We saw how the world was brought to its knees because of COVID-19 pandemic. So now the countries around the world want to stay one step ahead. And for that, they are now trying to analyze the makeup of the human body, the makeup of the human DNA, to understand how the human DNA is different from each other so that they can be targeted medicines and targeted therapy that is something that we are well equipped with much before anything like that hits us. There are such projects that are going on internationally. India also runs this kind of a project called Genome India. This is what this article is about. The second article will be about the Supreme Court ruling on Tamil Nadu governor's role. Governor is anyways one of the most important topics in Indian polity. As you know, it also remains a lot in the news, especially with respect to the states which are ruled by the party that is opposite to the one at the center. The role of the governor as the head of the state or as the agent of the center government remains a very controversial, contentious issue. With respect to what is happening here, the Supreme Court had made a ruling about how the governor should behave when it comes to the bills that are sent to the governor by the state. Then the third article will be about quicker, inexpensive indigenous TB test developed, tuberculosis. As you know, the government of India has an extremely ambitious aim of eliminating tuberculosis from India by 2025, that is this year. On way to that, it's extremely important to have efficient and inexpensive testing technology available. In that aspect, this is a very important piece of news. So let's begin analyzing these with the first one that we have for you. So the first news article is about what we call as Genome India project. It is based on the idea of genetic mapping. As I said, the basic idea is countries around the world are now trying to get as much information about a DNA makeup as possible so that they can ensure targeted medicine of targeted delivery of medicine. They can ensure that we are well prepared to handle any kind of disease that might come up in the future. For that, it's important to understand the human composition. How is the entire population different from each other? Because depending upon our past, depending upon our ancestors, depending on our bloodlines, there's a very different makeup of the human body. Why is it that some people have a different kind of a skin color as compared to others? Why is it that some people become bald while other people do not? Why is it that some people have very frequent episodes with diseases, while other people are much healthier. All of that has to do with the composition of the human body. And for all of that, it is important to understand how the human body actually works and how the human body is composed. For that, the Genome India project is running. So this is the basic idea. By the way, this is a kind of question that you can see in the mains examination from biotechnology specifically. As you can see, this question has been asked in 2021. Now, this is the context of why this article has been written. It is officially called Genome India project. This in fact has already been asked in the prelims examination once in the past. The idea is that the government will have genome or collection of 10,000 unrelated healthy Indians across 83 endogamous population groups. Now please understand, 10,000 people randomly will be chosen, and as these kind of things happen, the government will try to have as diverse data set as possible. So people who are not related to each other, people who are healthy, so that their DNA composition can be looked into. There are multiple research institutions in India that are working to collect all this data, to analyze all this data. Some of these institutions include the IISc Bangalore, CCMB Hyderabad. All these institutions are working together to collect this data and to make sure that the government's idea of the Genome India project becomes successful. Now, what exactly is genome mapping? Let's try and clarify that before we move forward. What is a genome? So, genome, for example, is, in simple terms, it's a complete set of DNA. Now, within the DNA, we have the genes that are passed on from one generation to the other. That is the reason why, for example, you might have the same eye color as one of your parents. You might have a lot of traits that your parents would have because the genes are passing. That's why when a kid is born, the first reaction is, oh, who does the kid look like, the mother or the father? Because these are the genes that are actually passing on. So this is what genome is all about. It's about getting complete set of information that is present in your DNA, including your genes. And then the idea is this will be around 20,500 genes in an individual. That is a lump sum idea, because each human cell has 23 pairs of chromosomes, so total of 46 chromosomes. And within those chromosomes, when you take out the DNA, when you see the genetic information inside of it, you would have about 20,500 genes. Now, it's not that simple. How exactly are the genes aligned? What is their shape? In what pattern are they present? That decides a lot about your future, about your physical traits, and about your health. This is where genome mapping will come in. So some genes may be lined up in a row. Some genes may be quite close to each other. All of that will decide what are the characteristics that are passed on from one generation to the other generation. This is where all that is important. Genome mapping thus gives you all that information. Now, it's a treasure trove of information. Also, when you collect so much information and so much personal information about someone, it also begs the question, what if it is misused? What if it goes into the wrong hands? That also is a very valid concern. That is why these kind of projects that are run in India and other parts of the world as well, there's always an ethical aspect of it. There's always an ethical debate about it. So far, out of 10,000, we have sequenced about 9,772 individuals. We have also put a lot of focus on tribal communities. So there's a mix of tribal plus non-tribal, and there are different language families. So there are people from different parts of the country that the government is targeting, so that we get as diverse a group as possible. Also, some specific tribal groups, for example, the Andamanese and early settled groups that mainly live in the Andaman Nicobar Islands, they have been exempted because their genetic structure has not evolved and it has remained very different as compared to the other parts of population in the country. 98% of genome is non-coding, but it is still extremely important. So about 98% of genome may not be that helpful, or it cannot be coded because you can't identify the exact structure of that, but it is still extremely important. It will give you a lot of information about, again, the genetic structure of the human beings and how it is passed on from one generation to the next generation. Now, in India specifically, we are a society that practices endogamy. Now, endogamy is again something which means marriage within the community. So most of the things that you see, or most of the marriages, matrimonial alliances that you see in the country are about people preferring to marry their children within their community, within their caste or within their religion. That is a practice of endogamy. When you have that kind of a practice, that means that in every next generation, the genome sequences get mixed up with two individuals coming in from different parts. That also creates a unique set of genetic patterns that results in very different group mutations. And unlike other projects, for example, as I said, there are other countries also, US, UK, that are undertaking similar projects. Those projects mainly are taking data from Europe. Most of that is focused in Europe, and because even if you look at US, the population in US, a lot of it is the population that actually came, their ancestors had come in from Europe. So a lot of that is Eurocentric as compared to what we are doing in India, because most of the other such projects going on, the world project, they were not taking Indian population into consideration. That is why we have started our own such project. Where will it help? What are the applications? As I said, it's mainly got to do with able to fight diseases that might arise in the future. It will help us in earlier diagnosis. It will help us in having affordable genomic diagnosis, because when you do something at such a large scale, or when you have done it multiple times, you would obviously be much better prepared as compared to when you're doing it for the first time. It will also help in policy targeting. For example, with the government having genome sequence of different groups, the government can predict that, okay, in this particular group, or a person having these particular traits is much more likely to fall ill with this kind of a disease. For example, if you know that the genome sequencing that I have, a person similar to my genome sequencing falls ill in certain kind of a manner very frequently after the age of 50, I would be better prepared to fight against it. This is where these kind of information, this kind of availability of information actually helps us. It will strengthen our own public health surveillance. Public health surveillance means the government keeping an eye on the larger public, basically being prepared. The government, for example, when the COVID-19 crisis hit, the government was not prepared for a disease that might require so much external oxygen support. That's why we were struggling. We had to import so many oxygen concentrators, so many oxygen cylinders were falling short. So the government had to make arrangements for that. This is where public health surveillance comes in, where the government actually can predict that, okay, this is the kind of problem that we might face for our population. So let us be well prepared for these kind of infrastructure in advance. This is what this Genome India project is about. You can also see a lot of information from here. This is a handout released by the government itself. It is about having reference for about 10,000 Indians having their genome sequence information. It is about disease identification, capacity building, training the personnel in the medical field so that they can be better prepared to handle these kind of issues. It will also provide us resources for larger genetic studies in the future. It will also help us to understand the response of different medicines or different parts of the population so that we can be better prepared and we can stock up all this medicine if the time comes. As I said, there are ethical concerns about it. The biggest ethical concern being that you are taking such intimate information. You are basically documenting what the human body is made up of. If that falls into the wrong hands, and if they really want to damage you, or if they really want to do something against you, something that harms you, they can do it very, very, very easily. This is where we have to understand that there are some issues that we have not been able to correct here. And the government might say that no, your data is safe, but we all know with respect to Aadhaar, for example, every few months there's a news story that comes in that Aadhaar data has been leaked, or some Aadhaar data has been found out to be leaked in a Telegram group. So when Aadhaar data can get leaked, this is even more important. This is a genetic data, much, much, much more important. And it can be sent into the wrong hands, something that can damage the entire country at a very, very, very vast level. As I've been telling you, the Indian project is not the first one of its kind. There are other projects as well that have been going on. This is again an important piece of information that UPSC has asked in the past. The first one was a human genome project happening at a global scale. UK has been doing its own, called the UK's 100,000 genomes project. So they are taking data of 1 lakh people. Then America has something called All of Us research program, the similar kind of a thing. They are taking a specific set of population within their country, taking and collecting their genome data to understand and find out if they can predict certain diseases and the impact of medicines on those diseases as well. That was our first article for the day, specifically important from the point of view of science and technology, that is in GS3. The next article that we have is Core Indian Polity, Governor, the powers of the governor, and what exactly has been the issue in the past few years. In the past few years, although we have seen a lot of talk about cooperative federalism, comparative federalism, but the issue has always been the office of the governor. Now please understand, just like the President of India works at the center government level, the governor is supposed to be the head of the state. The problem here is the governor has a dual role. One, the governor is the head of the state, and secondly, the governor also is an agent of the central government. Now, as the agent of the central government, the governor has to take certain orders, certain directions from the central government as well. But increasingly, we have seen in Indian politics that governors have an increased tilt towards the central government. So, in a lot of these cases, the governors take instructions from the central government and rather than working in the interest of the state, start working in the interest of the center. Now, the issue starts from the constitution itself, because if you look at the constitution does not give a lot of details about the eligibility of the governor. For example, for a person to be appointed as the governor in India, you just have to be 35 years of age and you should be an Indian citizen. That's it. These are the only two eligibility criteria that have been mentioned. There's nothing else that has been mentioned. There are multiple committees and commissions formed in the past, like the Sarkaria Commission, the Panchi Commission. They have suggested a lot of things, such as the governor should not be from that state, the governor should be a prominent figure, the governor should not be attached with active politics, chief minister should also be taken into consideration, his or her recommendation should also be asked for. But more often than not, the central governments usually recommend a name to the president from their own party line. So if the BJP, for example, is at the center, they will name a person who is an ex-BJP person or a bureaucrat close to the BJP. This name will be given to the president will appoint that person. So what happens here is the states which are not run by the BJP, for example, let's say Tamil Nadu, Kerala, West Bengal, the states that are not run by the BJP, in those states increasingly there is a confrontation between the chief minister and the governor, where the chief ministers argue that whatever decisions we take, the governor is trying to create a roadblock there. The governor, on the other hand, is of the view that no, I am doing everything that I am supposed to do constitutionally. In this background, understand what is happening in Tamil Nadu. Now, the Tamil Nadu governor, or Tamil Nadu government rather, has a big question about their governor. The Tamil Nadu government says that whenever we send a bill, we pass a bill in the assembly, we send the bill to the governor does not take any action on that bill. The governor just keeps the bill with himself for years and years and years. And thus, the governor is not allowing a constitutionally elected government to work properly. Now, please understand, the governor in such matters cannot act on his own discretion. The governor has to act on the advice of the Council of Ministers, but this is something that is contentious. Because again, let's go back to the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India, after 42nd Amendment, specifically says now that the President has to abide by the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. But the same line is not written about the governor. I'll repeat, for the President, the Constitution says that the President has to be bound by the aid and advice of the governor, of the Council of Ministers. But for the governor, the same thing is not written. So a lot of times the governors argue that, oh, I have a free hand, I will decide whatever I want. But this again becomes a contentious issue. Now this matter has gone to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has openly criticized the governor and has taken the side of the Tamil Nadu government. Interestingly, for the first time, Supreme Court has also given specific time limits within which the governor must decide on the bill. Please understand, in the Constitution of India, the President or the governor do not have any time limit within which they have to decide on the bill. The Constitution doesn't mention any such time limit. They are free to decide within how much time period do they want to take a decision on the bill. But the Supreme Court here in this monumental case has given a specific time limit as well. And the Supreme Court has said that this should apply to all the states. It is not just about Tamil Nadu. It will apply to all the states. The matter was about 10 bills that were passed by the assembly, but they were just kept with the governor. The governor was postponing them, not taking any action. This is what angered the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has given this verdict. Now, if you look at the Constitution of India, what options does the governor have with reference to a bill? Article 200 says that when a bill passed by the legislature of the state goes to the governor, what can the governor do? The first option, obviously, give assent to the bill. So the bill will become an act. That's the simplest thing. Second, withhold assent. Withhold assent in other terms, as you would have read, is called as pocket veto. Meaning the governor doesn't say yes, the governor doesn't say no, just keeps the bill with himself. Because the governor or the president have no time limit to decide on the bill, they can do this, that they can just indefinitely keep the bill with them, keeping the government waiting. The bill is as good as dead. Third one, return the bill, or in other words, in Indian polity, you read this as suspensive veto. This is suspensive veto, this is pocket veto. These three options are available to the president as well and to the governor as well. However, in case of the governor, they get one more option, option number 4, that is, the governor may reserve a bill for the President of India's assent. So, there are certain criteria under which the governor may reserve a bill for the president. Now, please remember this. There is one kind of a bill, only one kind, that the governor must send to the president. Again, there is only one kind of a bill that the governor must send to the president. That is, if a bill is trying to curtail the powers of the state high court. So, if a bill is trying to curtail or cut down the powers of the state high court, that bill the governor must send it to the president. Apart from that, there are other situations in which the governor may or may not send the bill to the president. That depends on the governor. So, other situations, for example, are if the bill has something of national importance, if the bill in the eyes of the governor is against the fundamental rights, if in the eyes of the governor the bill is violation of the constitution, if the bill is about compulsory acquisition of property by the government. In these cases, the governor may or may not send the bill to the president. But in case the High Court's powers are getting disturbed, then the governor must send the bill to the president. Now, in these kind of cases, again, the article number 200 does not mention any time limit. Article 200 just says that if the governor has to withhold the assent, then the bill must be returned as soon as possible. So, even if you have to withhold the assent, even then you should inform the government that I am withholding the assent as soon as possible. So, Constitution does not give a time limit, it just says as soon as possible. This is what the Supreme Court has not agreed with. Now, this is the detailed verdict of the Supreme Court, extremely important, do make a note of this. First, Supreme Court says that pocket veto is unconstitutional, means the governor cannot just indefinitely keep the bill with him or her and say that no, I am thinking about it. That is not allowed. A constitutionally elected legislature has passed the bill. It is their power to make the law. The governor cannot just randomly keep it. Such delays go against the idea of representative democracy. As soon as possible means any delay will be against the constitution. Second, reserving a bill for the president cannot be random power. The governor cannot reserve the bill unless the bill is materially altered. So, understand what is happening here. When suspensive veto is used, the governor sends a bill back and the legislature can pass the bill second time, and the second time the bill comes back to governor. In the second time, Supreme Court says when the bill comes back second time, then they cannot keep the bill with them. They have to pass it. They must pass the bill if it comes to them the second time. Unless the bill has been altered, unless the bill has been majorly changed, then you may reserve the bill. Means you may think and you may not give your assent. But if the bill is almost the same as the first time, you use your suspensive veto, now the bill comes back, you cannot stop the bill now. If the bill comes back after you use suspensive veto second time, it has to be given assent. Third point, judicial review is allowed. Supreme Court is an extremely powerful organ. It would not be wrong to say that the Supreme Court probably has a lot more powers than any other organ of the government right now. A lot of powers of the Supreme Court are derived from an article called Article 142. This gives almost unlimited powers to the Supreme Court, because Article 142 says the Supreme Court can give any judgment or any directive which might lead to complete justice in the society. In the name of complete justice, in the name of what is complete justice, what is not complete justice, the Supreme Court can give a lot of directives. This is where Article 142 comes in extremely handy. The Supreme Court was so angry in this case that they said, using our powers of Article 142, we are saying that all those 10 bills that the governor had not signed, consider them passed. Consider those bills passed, or consider those bills as having been converted to act, valid from November 2023. That was the time that the governor was given the bill once again. So when the governor who was given the bill the second time did not give the assent, from that day onwards, consider the bill has been passed. So angry was the Supreme Court that they said, if the governor doesn't sign the bill, we will sign the bill, and we have this power under Article 142. Not just this, for future reference, Supreme Court has set specific timelines now. What are these timelines? If the governor withholds the assent or reserves a bill, it has to be informed within 1 month. So pocket veto, etc., within 1 month you have to tell the government that I am not signing the bill. Second, if you are returning the bill, if rejecting, then within 3 months you have to use a suspensive veto. And when you're using suspensive veto, you have to give in writing why are you not signing the bill. Means you have to give in writing what is the problem with the bill, what changes do you want to be made, and if that problem has been corrected, if the changes have been made, then you should give the assent the second time. Third, if the bill is repassed, then the assent must be given within 1 month. In case of suspensive veto, as I said, when the legislature passes the bill once again, the second time in case of suspensive veto, in that case, the passed bill, when it comes to the governor, it has to be given assent within 1 month and no more than that. Then the president must decide on assent to reserved bills within 3 months of reference. Any delay must be justified and communicated. So in any case, the president also, when he gets the bill from the governor, even president would have a time limit now. Earlier, the governor or the president, none of them had a time limit. But this time around, the Supreme Court has said, if the governor sends a bill to the president, even that doesn't mean that the bill will be delayed. Because a bill referred by the governor to the president must be decided on within 3 months of time. Within 3 months that the president got this bill, he must decide. So Supreme Court, again, extremely strict, setting specific timelines for the governor and the president as well. It gives a big boost to the idea of federalism. There have been so many Supreme Court cases in the past of center versus state, division of power in center versus state cases. The very famous case of S.R. Bomai, who used to be the Chief Minister of Karnataka when his government was dismissed, and he went to Supreme Court in 1994. Where the Supreme Court again had underlined the importance of federalism. Again, the court has done the same thing, that federalism cannot be overridden. Government at the center does not rule or control the entire country. The states are independent constitutional authorities, and you cannot expect the state governments to just run as per the whims and fancies of the center government. This is where it has to be different. Article 142, as I told you, gives extreme powers to the Supreme Court. It says that the Supreme Court can give any directive or judgment that leads to complete justice in the society. I'll give you an example, okay? In the famous Ayodhya Ram Janmabhoomi case, the matter of contention, what the Supreme Court had to decide was that there is a piece of land that is contentious between two parties. So you just decide this piece of land belongs to whom, the Hindu side or the Muslim side. That was the only thing that the court was asked. But the court, after giving the judgment, did not just stop there. The Supreme Court said, okay, this land belongs to the Hindu side. But apart from that, they said, under the powers given to us, or the powers given to us rather under Article 142, we direct the government of UP to allocate 5 acres of land to the other side so that a mosque can be built there. So this is under Article 142 that these kind of judgments or directives can be given. There is another example. Many years ago, Uttar Pradesh had a Lokayukt. Lokayukt had a 5-year term, but even after 5-year term was over, the UP government would just not remove the Lokayukt, would never appoint a new Lokayukt because they were very impressed or they liked the Lokayukt. They did not want the Lokayukt to change. The Supreme Court got so angry that they intervened and they removed the Lokayukt and appointed a new Lokayukt. So there are multiple examples of how Article 142 is used by the Supreme Court from time to time, specifically to stress upon the fact that we can give any directive if we think that justice is not happening. Historically also, we have seen this contentious, the issue being contentious, that is the bills going to governor or the president getting stuck there because no time limit has been mentioned in the constitution. Very famously, the Hindu Code Bill, where it went to the President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, he was not ready to give assent. And first Attorney General of India, MC Setalvad, came in between and suggested that the President should be abiding by the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. That is how the bill got passed. So, passing of the bill, etc., has always been a contentious issue. This particular judgment is even more far-reaching because it is not just valid or it is not just limited to within Tamil Nadu. It's a judgment of the Supreme Court, so it will be valid on all the governors across the country, all the states. So states such as Kerala, West Bengal, again the states which have a non-BJP government, where they also have been having issues against their governor, they might welcome this kind of a judgment because it gives them also the point or the power to tell the governor that, see, we told you so, now give assent to the bill because the Supreme Court has said this. So it has much wider implications going forward. The next article that we have here is again from Science and Technology, specifically about a disease that we have been fighting against. The Government of India hopes to eliminate TB by 2025. Now only time will tell whether we are able to achieve this goal or not. But to eliminate any disease, the first step always is to have good enough affordable technology at a wide scale for testing of that disease. Because unless you are able to test that, you will never be able to give medication to the person regarding that particular disease. This is where this news becomes important. Although there are multiple ways in which tuberculosis or TB as you call it is tested these days, however, you can always improve, you can always have a better way, a more affordable test that can give you results in a shorter time span. And also the efficiency of all these tests is very different. This is where a good news has come in, that a new TB test has been created. It is all indigenous, so within the country, that can actually give you test results in a shorter time span. Regarding diseases, the ones that remain in the news, there are a lot of questions that are asked in prelims on a very regular basis. This, for example, is an example of a question asked in 2017. All the questions that you see here on the screen, the previous year question, etc., I hope that you would be able to mark or correct the answers, see if you can answer these. Tell us the answer in the comment section. It will be a helpful revision exercise for you as well. And we can also see if you are actually following it right on track or not. Now, this is the gist of the news, the context of why the topic is in the news. This new TB testing technique has been derived or developed at Sri Chitra Tirunal Institute for Medical Sciences and Technology, in short SCTIMST. They developed a novel means new, and cost-effective technique. This in short is called RT-LAMP. RT means real time, so it will give you results in a very short span of time. So it's real-time LAMP technology for early diagnosis of pulmonary tuberculosis. Now tuberculosis or TB is of different types. For example, let's say you have a lump of mass somewhere in your body. For example, let's say someone has a lump of mass here in their neck and they get it operated, the doctors remove that lump. So once they remove it, they also test that lump, whether that lump has, let's say, some other kind of an infection or not. So they will test whether it has tuberculosis or TB bacteria or not. That might also be a form of TB. But pulmonary tuberculosis is the one that actually infects the person's lung. Now, lungs-based TB is the most dangerous. This spreads when a person coughs quite a lot, and that becomes very dangerous and the person has to be treated. The other kind of TB, like you had a lump, it was affected by tuberculosis bacteria, that does not spread from person to person, so that is not really that problematic. So for pulmonary tuberculosis especially, it is important to have a test ready, affordable, that can give you a test result in a shorter time span. So this test shows a much higher sensitivity and specificity in as compared to the other tests that we have. It is faster and much cheaper as compared to the tests that we have right now available with us. Now this is how it works. You don't have to remember all the technical aspects of it, as long as you just understand the basic idea of it. They will not ask you so many details about the complex version or complex nature of these tests. So usually it uses 6 primers. So 6 kind of samples basically will be used here. It operates at a single temperature. It doesn't require different temperature ranges. There are earlier testing methods available like the RT-PCR that was used, if you remember, for COVID-19 as well. RT-PCR requires different temperature ranges, so it is much easier to perform one single temperature range. It usually uses a fluorescent dye which doesn't inhibit the reaction, means it doesn't put any roadblocks in the reaction of this disease or in the reaction of how the disease is actually getting caught. It can detect as few as 10 copies of TB. So even if the tuberculosis bacteria is present in very small quantity, even that can be detected. That's an important parameter here. When you have bacteria in smaller amount, they might be able to ensure that they avoid getting tested, and this is where the problem starts. So the person in that case will be suffering from tuberculosis, but it just won't be seen on any test. This is where the tuberculosis or this kind of a test is helpful, that even if only 10 copies of tuberculosis DNA are present per microlite, they would be able to catch that. That means that it is very high on sensitivity. So when you are measuring an effectiveness of a test, you don't just measure the time period in which it gives the result or the cost, you also measure the sensitivity of it. The higher the sensitivity means better are the chances that it will be able to detect that microbe even if it is present in very small quantity. There is no probe required, so the cost is extremely low. Dye primers that are being used here for this test are inexpensive. When you say inexpensive, what it also means to say that now this technology can be used in the rural areas as well. You can get these kits available in public healthcare sectors, government hospitals, district hospitals, far and wide. So you would not have to go to a very specific place that requires a specific range of temperature, etc. It's low cost and it can be used at multiple places. Also, it has already been licensed to industry partners. It has already been approved by Central Drug Standard Control Organization, CDCSO. Also, the Indian Council for Medical Research, ICMR, is now validating it. We hope that WHO will also be willing to give it its own certificate. WHO is evaluating it right now, because when WHO, for example, says yes, when they agree that yes, the test works, the result will be that these testing kits will now be made available to other countries as well. Other countries which are poor, other countries which are not able to afford high cost testing kits. So African countries, especially sub-Saharan Africa, etc., they'll also be getting these tests, these kind of kits, once WHO approves it. Now, why is it that we need these kind of tests? The reason is that India is again the TB capital of the world, with a lot of cases of TB still being found. 79% of TB diagnosed in India still rely on outdated microscopy that is less accurate. In especially when we see the lower sections or the poorer section of the society, a lot of people die of tuberculosis because the disease was never detected in them. The tests that were available were just not up to the mark, they were just not effective enough, and we were not able to even see whether they actually had TB or not. Molecular testing facilities increased from 5,090 to 6,496, but still they are much shorter than the goal that we have. Because again, when you have testing technology that is expensive, that requires a very stringent set of parameters like temperature, etc., you can't use it universally. So this kind of technology can have a much more universal application. This is where it is helpful for us. This innovation is crucial because, as I said, 1/4 of the global TB cases are in India. That is a very heavy number. Even if you say, why is it so worrying? India anyways has a large population, but the problem is, even if you compare this with the proportion of population, so India has about 16 to 17% of the world's population. Even with that proportion, the number of TB cases that we see here is higher. So even if we would have said that, okay, 16 to 17% TB cases are of India, then even then you can justify it in some way or the other. But to say 25% of cases of TB are in India, that's a much higher number. TB remains a highly infectious disease. India, as I said, has been aiming to eliminate TB by 2025. The WHO target is of 2030. Do remember this also for prelims exam. If they ask you about WHO and TB strategy, WHO's aim is to end TB by 2030. India itself has made a much more stringent goal for ourselves. So we would want to eliminate it by 2025 itself. WHO is aiming for a 2030 elimination. There are other technologies that are still available. The CRISPR tool is also being used specially for TB detection. We also have the LAM-based test. LAM-based test, the one that we also have just been talking about, that's also LAM-based test. That is much cheaper and faster as compared to CRISPR tools. CRISPR tools again are a very recent technology, but they require very high skilled training to use, and they are also much more expensive than the available technology with LAM, and thus they can't be used at such a large scale, especially not in developing countries or low income countries such as India. This is why LAM testing or RT-LAM testing is important. Now, in the first topic that we discussed today, the topic, if you remember, was about genetic mapping or genome sequencing. There is a sample question for the mains examination I would like to share here with you along with the model answer, so that you can have a fair bit of idea about what and how to write. The question, for example, can be, discuss the significance of genetic mapping projects like Genome India in enhancing public health and advancing precision medicine in India. What are the ethical and policy challenges associated with this initiative? We discuss about this. We discuss about the challenges as well. In such a question, introduction should be explain in a couple of lines about this project, what this project is about. We discussed this. It's about having genome sequencing or having genetic data of 10,000 Indians from different varieties, making sure that they're unrelated to each other, they are healthy individuals. Such kind of projects are running in other parts of the world as well. Such kind of a thing can be the introduction part. In the main body part, you have to ask or tell about first what are the advantages, means why is this being run. We discuss about how it will help us in ensuring that there's early detection of diseases in the future, that we have much better diagnostic tools available, that we are much better prepared for public health surveillance. Then you will write about what are the issues of privacy, specifically issues about sensitive data at risk of being stolen, at risk of being shared. You also have to write about some suggestions. So whenever they're asking you about problems, they might not ask you the suggestion, but if the problems are asked, it is your responsibility that along with the problems, also write about the solutions. Solutions, for example, we should have a strong, robust data protection law. We should have proper framework about how to protect such data. All that can be used here. In conclusion, again, write about how such a project is extremely crucial. It's extremely important to be carried out. Yes, it does have some problems. Yes, there are some challenges, but the challenges do not mean that we would be stopping here. So we should not stop. We should go ahead and try and make sure that all these projects are concluded. This is how you can write this mains answer. Now, every single day, we give you certain practice questions and we discuss the answers the next day. So I will be discussing the answer to those prelims questions that were given to you yesterday from yesterday's discussion. Let's see if you got those right. The first question was, which of the following correctly describes the role of DRDO? First, it is India's nodal space agency. No, as you know, that is ISRO. It's a pretty simple question. Second, it is responsible for disaster management, civil aviation policy formulation. No. It is the premier R&D organization under Ministry of Defense working on indigenous defense technology. Yes. A lot of missile development programs happen here. A lot of other, so for example, let's say HAL, etc. They are manufacturing companies. So the research will happen at DRDO. They will be the one researching it, developing the IP, and then they will give it to another company to then manufacture it in larger scale. So your answer here would be C. Pretty simple question. The next question that we had here was about Index of Industrial Production, IIP. Consider the following statements about IIP. Number one, the base year of IIP is 2011-12 with the value of base year always set at 100. In economics, you would have read about how IIP is calculated, what are things, what are the core areas that are taken into consideration. This is correct. IIP is computed and published by Ministry of Commerce and Industry on a quarterly basis. No. So there are a lot of things wrong here. If you actually know even one of this, you can say this statement is wrong. So there are a lot of wrong things. For example, first, published by CSO, Central Statistics Organization. Second, it works under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So the same ministry that publishes data about, let's say, GDP numbers, etc. So Ministry of Statistics Program Implementation is the one after it. Then it is published monthly, not quarterly. So a lot of incorrect information in this statement. Even if you know one of them is wrong, you should be able to answer this. Third, IIP is segregated into three major sectors: manufacturing, mining, quarrying, and electricity. That is absolutely correct. There are three major sectors, and you take that data to get a number of the IIP. So the answer here would be 1 and 3 are correct. That is C. C would be the correct answer here. I hope you got this one right. Not a difficult one. If you have read economics, it's just the basic part of it. One more question that was given yesterday for discussion. With reference to process of de-extinction, consider the following statements. Number one, cloning as a method of de-extinction requires intact nuclei from preserved tissues. Now, why was this topic in the news? You have seen scientists have brought back or have recreated dire wolves that were extinct. So bringing back a species that had been extinct is called de-extinction. So the first statement says that cloning as a method of de-extinction requires intact nuclei. Yes, so you have to have nuclei that has been kept intact, and then you can work around it and bring it back. Second, selective breeding can be used to recreate extinct species even if no close relatives exist. No. See, if you have to recreate any organism, recreate something that has gone extinct, you have to have, or you have to ensure that the closely related species is available. So close relative has to be available so that you can work around that and you can work on similar kind of traits. Third, genome editing using CRISPR-Cas9 involves editing the genome of a living species to introduce new traits of an extinct species. That is what CRISPR-Cas9 is. Think of it like a scissor. It can cut down certain genes that you don't want, and you can basically then put some new genes. It can be used for various applications apart from the one that you see here. Other applications also, for example, can be that if there is a disease that is passed on genetically. So if there is a genetically passed on disease, let's say hereditary, one generation has a disease and the second generation also has that. So you take out that specific gene that is actually causing this disease to go from one generation to the other, so that that disease can be removed from that line of family. So that also is a very important application of CRISPR-9. 1 and 3 are correct. B would be the correct answer here. Slightly tricky, but I think you should be able to answer that based on the discussion that we had yesterday. Now, these are the question that we had yesterday. Just like this, I have a couple of questions for your homework depending upon the topics that we discussed today from the prelims exam point of view. So the first question that I have is about TB diagnosis, the ones that we discussed about RT-LAMP technology. How is it different from the existing technology? How is it different from CRISPR-9? 3 statements, not a very difficult question to answer. Think about what the answer has to be. One more question that I have is about the powers of the governor. Again, if you were attentive enough during this discussion, you should be able to answer this question as well. Make sure that you do attempt these questions. If you want to attempt this quiz, go to the description of this video. You will find a link. Click on that link. That will take you to our website where you can attempt this quiz. See how many questions you are getting right. Tell us the answer. Tell us the score that you get in the comment section so that we can have a helpful discussion here as well. Thank you so much for joining in. We will see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. again to analyze the day's newspaper. If you are new here, do hit the like and the subscribe button. Also, check out the other initiatives and YouTube that are coming out on our YouTube session. My name is Harshmeet Singh. We are here from Narayana IAS Academy to help you fulfill your UPSC dream. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.